What's up, everybody? Welcome back to. Oh, you're the one viewer. Nice. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Go Talk with Marcus. Hopefully, for much longer. Powered by Poddex, fueled by Goat Fuel. Joining me on the show today is Blaine Spencer, host of the Final Whistle Sports Pod. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good, man. We're just trying to get through the work week. Now we're talking some football. It's always nice to kind of reprieve. Hopefully not about my team that much, but, we'll be all right.
Well, we'll see. We'll see where the wind takes us. The first 3 weeks of the NFL season this year, I think, have been probably the most exciting 3 weeks we've had to start an NFL season in a long time, if ever. Like it's been crazy and it's been great to watch. We now have 2 teams left undefeated, which I think it's the least amount of teams we've had remaining undefeated at this point in the last 5 or 6 years. Like we've usually had about at least a good 6 or 7 teams still fighting strong and undefeated at this point. We got the Dolphins in the AFC. We've got the Eagles in the NFC. Which of these 2 teams is more surprising given at this point that they're both 3-0? Is it more surprising that the Dolphins are 3-0 now, or is it more surprising that the Eagles are 3-0?
Oh, I think this is easy. It's got to be the Miami Dolphins. I thought they'd be 1-2 right now, not 3-0. I had them losing to Baltimore 2 weeks ago, and I had them losing this past weekend to Buffalo. And I know if you guys hadn't watched my show, Marcus said Buffalo was going 20-0 this year, so there goes that down the drain with that take. Are you kidding me? I know you're going to be ripping on me all show, so I got to get my zingers in when I have the chance. How many
people in America thought that the Buffalo Bills were going to go 20-0? I mean, a lot. There's a lot.
Probably just you.
And that's fine. And that's perfectly fine. But of all the teams in the NFL that hang that hat on, you're hanging on the Buffalo. You don't hang on the Eagles. You're not going to hang on the Dolphins. You hang that hat on.
No, it's got to be Miami. I mean, I also had this hot take that Teddy Bridgewater was going to be their starting quarterback by week 6 or 7. So
it's possible. It's still possible.
Still possible, but not based off of how they've played so far. Tua's impressed. Tyreek Hill has been as advertised, even though we thought he might have a little bit of a dip going from Patrick Mahomes to Tua. Jalen Waddle's been a stud. And they've showed some promise. And other than, they probably should be 1-2. They got outplayed 2 out of those 3 games, and they got Buffalo just didn't have the right clock management and got gassed. And then Baltimore just had a calamity, even though Lamar Jackson was absolutely sensational. Philly hasn't really played anybody yet, so they should be 3-0.
I mean, they played the Vikings. The Vikings are a good football team. I don't know.
Oh, sorry, but they're playing primetime Kirk Cousins, not regular time Kirk Cousins. There's a difference there.
I months ago when the schedule came out, I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to make it to their bye week undefeated. I really do. I really, really, really do. They've got Jacksonville this week, which could be a tough one. It could be their first loss because Jacksonville's been playing well, and we'll get into Jacksonville a little bit later in the show. After Jacksonville, they take a trip to Arizona, which I think they dust the Cardinals handily, and then they come home before their bye week and play the Commanders.
What'd you say? Say it with your chest, boy. You're laughing too hard. Say it with your chest. Go on.
They come back. I'm sorry, that's not what the schedule says. They come back home and they play the Dallas Cowboys. They already beat the Commanders. And they'll beat them again quite handily.
All right, can we just talk? I mean, I knew this. We didn't even make it 5 minutes. We talked about off air right before we started. I said, "Can we make it 5 minutes?" And we're at the 4:30 mark. You were close. We almost got there. You couldn't control yourself, but oh my God, we are so freaking bad. If you watch that,
I said a whole bunch of Commanders fans talk about we need to start putting respect on Carson Wentz. And this past weeks, I see a whole bunch of Commanders fans saying that Carson Wentz needs to be on the bench next week and that Jack Del Rio needs to be fired. Carson Wentz sucks. The Commanders suck.
Jack Del Rio should be fired.
Yeah, I agree with you. Jack Del Rio's a terrible whatever he does. I don't know what Jack Del Rio does for the team because he doesn't do a good job of it. So it's not even worthy of mentioning. Riverboat Ron had a great run a couple years ago with the whole, it was a great story and how he was able to, coach the team. Hey, can we also acknowledge the fact that Washington Commanders fans were super excited about winning the division at 7-9 2 years ago? Like, that's just.
I was ecstatic.
Why? That's a losing record. Why are you ecstatic about that? That's ridiculous. That's insane.
All you have to do is get into the dance. It don't matter how you get there. Seattle was 7-9 and won a playoff game, and then they almost won their second game after that. But they also had like legit football players. We don't, so.
They also weren't a good football team. Good football teams don't go 7-9. It's just very simple. Anyway, we're not here to talk about the Commanders, at least not right now. The Commanders will come later in the show. I agree with you. I do think the Dolphins is the much more surprising pick. I had the Philadelphia Eagles going undefeated heading into their bye week, which would put them their bye week is in week 7. So I did have them going 6-0 heading into the bye. And here's the deal, right? When you look at what they have coming out of the bye, they've got Pittsburgh, they have Houston, Washington, and Indianapolis. I don't think it's far-fetched to say I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to lose a game eventually. But I wouldn't be surprised if heading into week 12 they're 10-0.
You think Philly will be 10-0?
No, I don't think they will be. Officially, I have them heading into the game against the Packers in week 12 9-1. The schedule is really easy in the opening set, which plays a big part into why they're undefeated right now. But if you look at they have Jacksonville this week, which could be a loss. Like we could see them fall this week to Jacksonville. I wouldn't call it surprising, but I think they could beat Jacksonville. I think they beat Arizona. I think they beat Dallas. Then they have their bye week. Coming out of the bye week, they have the Steelers, the Texans, Washington, and Indianapolis. Like all of these games over these next 7 games
are all winnable. They're all winnable.
I wouldn't bet that they'd be 10-0 at that point, but I also wouldn't be shocked if heading into week 12 when they're hosting my Packers, they're 10-0. I wouldn't be surprised. It just because the schedule permits it, but also like this isn't just the Eagles being undefeated right now isn't just like how it was with the Steelers a couple of years ago, where they were beating up on bad teams. Like the Eagles played a Lions team that put up a fight. Like say what you want about the Lions, but the Lions put up a fight in that football game. I know it was prime time Kirk Cousins, and maybe that's the reason why the Vikings lost. But the Vikings are still a good football team on paper, and they beat down the Commanders, whose first points of the game was a safety, which I think is embarrassing, like extremely embarrassing. But like you can say it's because of the schedule, but also like the Eagles are undefeated because they deserve to be undefeated, because they play good football, because Jalen Hurts has played out his mind. Because the one thing
to be in the MVP conversation.
He has to be, and I think he's leading the MVP conversation. No disrespect to Lamar Jackson, but one quarterback's undefeated, the other quarterback's not. It's very simple. It's just very simple math.
It's very simple that Lamar Jackson is the front runner because it's not his fault that his defense can't stop a cold right now. So
you're right, but Jalen Hurts has, I think,
you could make the argument 1A or 1B. You can't go wrong with either pick.
It's not a large gap. I don't think the gap between either is large. I just look at it and I look at what Jalen Hurts has done. Jalen Hurts has played phenomenal football, and it's not that Lamar Jackson hasn't. But I think so far
the Commanders shut him out in the second half, and that's honestly pretty disrespectful because the Commanders are absolute garbo right now.
You're right, but see, and that's and you. There's three different. There's two sides of that, right? And I don't have an opinion either way. The Commanders did shut them out the second half, right? Maybe that is a thing where the Eagles struggle to close out games. Maybe look at that and say that the Commanders just stepped up in the second half and made the right adjustments. Maybe look at that and you say, well, maybe the Eagles just took their foot off the gas. Whatever the case may be, I still look at Jalen Hurts and I look at the Philadelphia Eagles and I say the biggest question heading into this season for the Eagles was, is Jalen Hurts truly a franchise quarterback? Was last season a fluke as far as them getting into the playoffs and getting on that run in the back half of the season to make it to the playoffs? But also, can Jalen Hurts distribute the ball well enough to both of his star receivers and his really good tight end Dallas Goedert? And he's done that, right? We saw A.J. Brown have a phenomenal game in week 1. We saw A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith have decent games in week 2, and we saw Devontae Smith go off in game 3 as the game progressed. And had he's done that, and Dallas Goedert has still got he has been able to manage to perfection an offense that has a lot more moving parts than it did last season. This is no disrespect to Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson doesn't have a choice but to play great football right now. He doesn't. Because, and I don't believe this, but because let the media tell it, Lamar Jackson didn't have anybody on the team. Well, that's highly disrespectful, I think, to Devin Duvernay. I think that's highly disrespectful to Rashad Bateman. I think that's extremely disrespectful to a guy who's a top 5 tight end in football in Mark Andrews. We have to get rid of this narrative that Lamar Jackson has no help offensively. That's not the case.
He's got Mark Andrews. I mean,
Devin
Duvernay has played good football this year. The wide receiving core is, however, in comparison to what Jalen has, is bottom tier.
There's no
Jalen can argue. You can make the argument for Jalen that he might have a top 10 or even top 5 offensive group around him.
When have the Baltimore Ravens ever prioritized the pass game? Ever. Whether it be big money in free agency, whether it be via the trade, whether it be drafting, never. They don't. The Baltimore Ravens don't have Pro Bowl wide receivers. They don't have all pro. They don't have a long list of all pro wide receivers in their history like other teams do. The Baltimore Ravens have historically been a defensive team. They've been a running football team. That's how it works. When you draft a guy 32nd in the first round of 2018 draft class that specializes at running the football, you don't really need wide receivers. Like, we looked at this when Lamar Jackson came out and we said, well, he can do this. Let's build the offense around this. Let's make it a mobile offense. Then they do that, and now we're sitting here and we're saying, oh, well, they don't have any weapons. No, they have weapons. The issue is because here's the deal. Lamar Jackson is a good throwing quarterback. Is he one of the elite passing quarterbacks in the NFL? No, he's not. Would I rank him among the top 10 in passing quarterbacks in the NFL? Personally, no, I would not. And that's not because he can't do it. I can name 10 quarterbacks that are better and more consistent passing the football than Lamar Jackson. I don't think, debatably, I can name 7 for sure. And then you get to 8 to 10, and it's like, well, maybe it's a preference thing. But what I'm saying is, when you look at the way that Lamar Jackson plays football, Lamar Jackson's arm isn't what brought him to the dance. So why would the Baltimore Ravens prioritize bringing in wide receivers and bringing in tight ends, despite the fact that they've done that? Because they have. They went out there and they got Marquise Brown. They now have Rashad Bateman. They have Devin Duvernay. Like they have Mark Andrews, who is, as I mentioned, who had a phenomenal game this past week.
Mark Andrews was a bucket in that first quarter.
In that, like he played great. But like, I think the race is close. But if I look at just as far as what's happened, and I look at the team that's won more games, and you're right, the Philadelphia Eagles on offense are better. There's more talent. But I think
their defense stepped up this year too.
They have. I just think I look at Jalen Hurts and I think that Jalen Hurts has been more valuable to the Eagles than Lamar Jackson has been to the Ravens at this point, because Lamar Jackson's value at the Ravens hasn't changed. It's always been the same. It's been Lamar Jackson has always been.
It's been Lamar Jackson or nothing for them, basically.
Yeah, that's how it's been. With Jalen Hurts, I think the story is different because for Jalen Hurts, there was a lot of questions of, can he make this jump? Can he close the gap between it? Forget MVP. Can he close the gap between himself and Dak Prescott in the own division? Can he be one of the more elite quarterbacks in the NFC? Can he manage the A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert thing with the offense, as well as make sure that the running game isn't being neglected, because that's what brought them to the dance last season? And he's done that masterfully, right? And I think when we look at what's happened is heading into the season, okay, look at the schedule and say it's pretty weak, right? The Lions have been good. The Lions are, what are they, 1-2? They're 1-2 right now. The Lions could easily be 3-0 right now, if we're being honest. They could easily be more realistically 2-1.
But Detroit figured out how to beat Detroit last week.
They did.
That was typical Detroit Lions figure out a way to lose.
And I thought the Lions were going to win that game. I really didn't. I don't know who the Lions.
Likewise.
The Lions played this week.
They had Minnesota last week.
They did, and I thought that was going to be a game that the Lions win, because that was their first win of the season last season. Was against Minnesota in Minnesota, and I thought, well, let's repeat it. Let's give them the win. Like, I thought it was possible. When you look at like just the way that things have gone, though, it's hard to look at the Eagles right now and say that this is a soft 3-0. Like, this is a hard fought 3-0. This is a shootout in week 1. This is a dominant performance in week 2. And an even more so dominant performance in week 3. But there's still been room for improvement. There's still been room for growth, and the offense has looked great. This has been one of the most potent offenses in football so far through 3 weeks. This has been one of the best. This has been one of, if not the best defense in football so far. through 3 weeks, because you looked at it and you say, well, how can the Eagles allow 35 points to the Detroit Lions in week 1 and be expected to contend? Okay, well, they followed up with allowing a combined less than 14 points or something like that these last 2 weeks. Like they played great football against Justin Jefferson, who is one of the best wide receivers in football. Darius Slay had him on lock all game 2 weeks ago, and then the Commanders and Terry McLaurin, despite being on a bad football team, is still a really good wide receiver. And Terry McLaurin was awfully quiet last week as well against the Eagles. Like, the Eagles have played good football, and I agree with you. It is more realistically a 1A, 1B thing. I think it's a toss-up. Whether you go Jalen Hurts or whether you go Lamar Jackson, it doesn't really matter which way you go.
So I'm assuming this is a pretty obvious answer, I think, for the both of us, but I think it's kind of interesting why the pundits are even talking about it, because I think they went to Alabama together. Tua beat out Jalen. You would have to take Jalen over Tua right now, right? I think it's not pretty self-explained itself.
Jalen over Tua. No, well, Alabama took Tua over Jalen, which I think was
Alabama took Tua over Jalen, but the pundits now are like, who would you take, Jalen or Tua? I would take Jalen without question.
Taking Jalen Hurts over Tua Tagovailoa, because I've always looked at Jalen Hurts and said, this is a guy that can lead a team to a championship. You can't say the same thing about Tua. You can't, despite the fact that the Dolphins,
everything has to go around him. Tua has to have everything go right around him.
Right. Jalen Hurts, I think, so far through what has been now a season and 3 games of playing football, and really a season in like 6 games, because he played, I think, the last 2 or 3 games of the season 2 years ago.
When they benched Carson or whatever. Yeah.
Jalen Hurts has looked like a franchise quarterback from day one. Tua has not. Like, Tua, and you can say it's a confidence thing, you can say it's a lack of trust thing, whatever the case may be. Tua hasn't been good. He just hasn't up until this season. And you can and so then the question with Tua becomes, at least that I have, is Tua looking this good, and are the Dolphins looking this good right now because it's Tua, or is it because of the weapons that they've surrounded Tua with? Because I can put Jalen Hurts in if we swap. Let's put it like this: if Jalen Hurts is in Miami and if Tua is in Philly, are both of these teams still 3-0? I don't think so. I think both of these teams are still 3-0. I think the Dolphins are for sure 3-0. I don't know if the Eagles are 3-0 if Tua is the quarterback.
Right.
And that is why I would take Jalen Hurts over Tua Tagovailoa, and I don't think it's particularly close.
I don't think it's close either, but I don't, which is why I just thought it was intriguing why the pundits are even talking about it. Like, these guys think that it's a lot closer than what people realize, but I'm like, Tua has a leadership component. That's the only reason Miami is doing well. And I mean, they're trying to give him the argument because of how Teddy Bridgewater, how awful he looked in that, 1.5 series that he was in the game for before Tua came back out there.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that you have to also factor in, but I don't think it's fair whatsoever.
And this is no shot at Tua, because Tua has played good football this season, but I don't know if it's hard right now we need to see, and I guess we saw it a couple weeks ago, and I guess again this past week against Buffalo, and I guess we saw it 2 weeks ago when they played the Ravens, is can Tua consistently step up in the big moments when the team really needs him to?
Right.
I think that's the thing. And you mentioned earlier that the Ravens have a bad defense, can't stop a cold. I agree with you. That could be a reason why the Dolphins come back. Here's the thing about the Bills, and I think this is something that is worth talking about before we move on to the other 2 teams that don't have any wins on the season. I thought the Bills were going to go undefeated. Excuse me for thinking that and buying into that. I apologize. I did see an interesting stat, though, the other day that I think is worth discussing, and that is that in the last 2 or 3 years, the Buffalo Bills are 0-7 in one-score football games. They don't win close football games.
Yeah, Justin was talking about that on his show last night.
How concerning is that for at least the popular vote? The consensus around most places is that the Buffalo Bills should be going to and winning the Super Bowl this year. That
they're on my pick. They are my pick.
They're 0-7. They're 0-7 in close football games. How concerning would you say that is, from a football perspective, that the overwhelming favorite is winless in one position football games?
I think it's more concerning than people realize. I saw that stat the other night, and it didn't click until I actually went back in and looked it up, right? And was going through everything, and everyone's like, Kansas City's there is the issue, right? We all thought that the Chiefs are just that final hurdle. No, because most of the games that they've been in, that they've lost are when it gets tight. And Kansas City's been, I think, 2 of those games, right? But they are struggling when the moment is at its greatest to close out a football game. And I think that is something that needs to be addressed. I don't think you look at it this past week. Josh Allen had a wide open touchdown to basically win that football game, and he skipped it in to McKenzie from the 2-yard line. There's something that is actually there. So I would be a little bit more concerned. I mean, I still believe if Buffalo didn't play in Miami this past weekend, and if it was up in Buffalo, they smoke them.
Sure.
But the weather played a huge role, but it doesn't matter. You had the opportunity to win that game, and you didn't. So I think that's something that is actually a mental hurdle there.
Sure, and the Bills have a game against the Ravens this week. They'll be in Baltimore to play the Ravens, so that'll be an interesting one to see.
That game will be a shootout.
Let's talk about teams that have yet to win a football game so far this season. One of them, I think we all could have assumed, is the Houston Texans, who are 0-1 at this point in the season. I would say at this point, the most shocking team right now in football, in the most negative way possible, is the Las Vegas Raiders, who are 0-3. While at this time last season, without Devontae Adams, they were 3-0. How concerning, like if you had to put on a scale of 1 to 10, where's the panic meter at for Vegas? And is this a personnel issue or is this a Josh McDaniels issue?
You got to have the panic meter pretty high, right? I would have it up at around probably a 9, 8 or 9. There is a underwhelming thing here that the issue is you're in the most vaunted division in the league, right?
Yeah.
With Kansas City, the Chargers, and Denver. Denver and Kansas City are 2-1. Kansas City should probably be 3-0, but you got lucky there that they collapsed against Indianapolis.
Yeah.
The Chargers, you don't know what the Chargers are going to be now because Herbert is injured and the team is losing players like flies. So you don't know where you're going to get
on IR today.
Yeah, they're losing a lot of players. But then but if you're the Raiders, you blew a 20-0 lead to Arizona. That's the game that you're like, you got some issues.
Yeah.
Tennessee.
On the same day that the Aces won the WNBA Finals, by the way, you should be ashamed of yourselves, Raiders. It's absolutely. It's supposed to be a great day for Los. Right. You ruined it. Be ashamed of yourselves.
But you got to put some. I think the blame is a team setup issue. The defense has never been truly great, but they've lost all 3 games in different ways. Yeah. You can blame the first game on Derek Carr because he was very lackluster with the football through 3 INTs, led to a bunch of points by the Chargers won week 1. Week 2, you blew a 20-0 lead. That was because their defense decided to turn themselves off in the fourth quarter and allowed Kyler to do something extremely improbable.
Yeah.
And then last week, it was a little bit of everything. Tennessee, it was in Nashville, but Derek Carr had another turnover in the red zone with that interception to Waller. That was going to Waller. Then you saw the defense struggling to contain Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry was catching the ball out of the backfield. That is not in his repertoire whatsoever. And you let him carve you up as a pass catcher, not as a runner with the ball, a pass catcher out of the backfield.
Yeah.
And it's not like Tennessee has overwhelming players on the outside. No offense to Robert Woods. Robert Woods is a solid number 2, maybe even number 3 option on most teams. So, and he's the number 1 in Tennessee. There's been an issue in all 3 games. So you got to put that on the head coach because it's not coming from the same area.
We have seen a lot over the last couple of years. Coaching be the undoing of some potentially very talented football teams. We saw the chart happen to the Chargers a couple times. We've seen it happen, obviously, now to the Raiders. I am not convinced that the Raiders can bounce back from this.
They're done. It's over.
I had the Raiders at 10-7, which means they have to go 10-4 the rest of the way. The schedule just doesn't permit that when they have 5 more division games left, and like they still got to play Buffalo. They've got to play Miami. I think they have to play the entire AFC South as well. It's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination for the Las Vegas Raiders to try to climb themselves out of this hole that they've dug themselves in. Now, as a fan of the player, I do feel bad. I do. I do feel bad for Derek Carr. I do feel bad primarily for Davante Adams as a fan of Davante Adams. As a Packers fan, however, I spent
you are rejoicing that he's struggling
months and months. Oh, what are the Packers going to look like without Davante Adams? Oh, the passing game's going to be shot. This team is done. How can you win a Super Bowl without Davante Adams? And Davante Adams left to go play with his bestie, and he's 0-3 right now. The Packers are 2-1. So
you guys don't look that great on offense, though, either.
Look great on offense, but we're not 3. We're not 0, which is what I'm saying. We're not 0-3, which is what matters. See, the world thought the Packers were going to be in shambles. If we look at the Raiders' schedule from week 4 on, and if I can find it on this fat spreadsheet that I made, they have a game in Denver this week. Then they go to Kansas City to face the Chiefs. Then they have their bye. Coming out of their bye, they played the Texans, the Saints, the Jaguars, the Colts. They play Denver again in Denver. They go to Seattle. They play the Chargers. They play the champ Rams. They play the Patriots, the Steelers, the 49ers, and they finish their season off in Kansas City.
Yeah, they're done.
This is not.
They were supposed to be 2-1 right now.
They're going to be 0-5 heading into the bye.
Are they at home against Denver this week though? Or is it in Denver?
No, it's a home game.
They might be. They might be able to get this week. Denver has looked pretty bad, even though that they're 2-1.
I predict that, but I mean, no one likes to listen to me sometimes. So I mean, I guess it is what it is. The Denver Broncos should not be a 2-1 football team. That's for sure. They should not be 2-1. They don't deserve anyone. Russell Wilson ate way too many of his special Subway sandwiches in the offseason.
Jimmy G is now in infamy with Dan Orlovsky. So
yeah, wow. Jeez, Jimmy G. That was such a terrible game, 10-11. But like if you look at it, okay, so you go into the season, you go 0-5. Your first win's against the Texans, big whoop. But then like I know the Saints have struggled. Are you going to beat the Saints in New Orleans? Probably not. I don't think you beat Jacksonville.
Not against that defense.
No. I think Indianapolis has finally figured themselves out after a slow start after the first 2 weeks, and especially coming off a big win against Kansas City. I like their chances. I think Indianapolis gets a win there. Maybe you can get your revenge on Denver. I like to think you beat Seattle. I don't see a scenario where at this point coming into week 13, Justin Herbert's injury is still going to be a problem. I think you lose to the Chargers. I think you definitely lose to the Rams. The Patriots game was a toss-up. I think Pittsburgh, like in the beginning of the season, we saw a lot of these games being, I think, firmly in Vegas's favor. A lot of these games are now complete toss-up games, and it's going to take one of those insane turnarounds they went on last season after the whole John Gruden thing to right this ship. And I don't know if Josh McDaniels is the coach that can right this ship. I don't doubt Derek Carr's leadership ability because I think he's one of the most underrated leaders in the NFL. But if we're talking about this from a coaching perspective, I agree with you. Josh McDaniels is, I think, the primary reason why this team is 0-3 because they don't have an identity. They don't know if they want to run the ball. They don't know if they want to pass the ball. They don't know how they want to get Davante Adams involved. They don't know how they want to make sure that Josh Jacobs and Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow. There's a lot of moving parts to this offense. And I think what we're seeing now is because Josh McDaniels has never been in a scenario where he's had this many offensive weapons at his disposal.
No, that's right.
I think that's what the issue is. He doesn't know what to do. Like, okay,
he doesn't know if they want how many touches to get every player. Unlike in New England, there wasn't anything really to do. He had to run the ball, especially this last year with Mac, and then
but also the other thing too is like when Tom Brady's your quarterback, you being the offensive coordinator is really just
for show
title. Like it's because someone's got to have it. But like Tom Brady's calling the shots offensively. We all know. Like if Tom Brady wants to change the play, he's going to change the play. I don't mean audible. I mean If he
literally change the play in the huddle,
change the play, he's gonna do it. So I don't really know how much offensive coordinating Josh McDaniel was doing while he was there and Tom was there. They had the COVID year with Cam Newton. That was a catastrophe. They had an okay season last season, but for the most part, they've only really been running the football. This is a pass-heavy offense. The only way this offense can really work is if it's pass first. I don't think Josh McDaniels can handle a situation where you have a lot of weapons offensively in the pass game. And I think that could be the Raiders' issue, is that Josh McDaniels just doesn't know what to do. And if that's the case, then I agree with you. The Raiders are done. Like, Peyton would say, stick a fork in them. They're done. The Raiders are done. And that's unfortunate, because I would have liked to see the Raiders back in the playoffs. I would have liked to see Devontae Adams back in the playoffs, because he's Devontae Adams. He's the best wide receiver in football. But as a Packers fan, I am thoroughly enjoying the failures, not the Raiders.
And his little babying and whining around the team right now.
Real quick. So in week 1, we got this graphic about what Devontae Adams was doing in week 1 as a receiver, and then what the Packers receivers collectively were doing. I didn't see that graphic the last 2 weeks. I haven't seen. I think we should keep that graphic running every week. I think we need that comparison, because it hasn't been. It's because it doesn't fit the narrative that the Packers offense has been. At least the passing game anyway has been relatively okay without Devontae Adams, but that doesn't fit the narrative. So I guess they don't want to talk about it.
Little saltiness there that you're trying to get out.
I absolutely believe that if you're going to run a graphic in week 1 that is comparing the trajectories, I think we should continue that. So we
continue now the trajectory that's been happening after 2 rough weeks for Devontae.
No, not after from Don. I think what happened is the world panicked and went up in arms because Alan Lazard didn't play football for week 1, and so everyone was all out of sync, and they was like, we got to get this graphic. And now that Alan Lazard is back, and David Bakhtiari is back, and Aaron Rodgers has more time in the pocket, and Robert Tonyan is back, and the passing game is kind of looking like a little bit of something. No one wants to talk about the comparison between Packers receivers and Devontae Adams, and I think that's highly disrespectful. And if there's any Fox executives that happen, I'm going to clip this, of course I will. And if there's any Fox executives that happen to stumble across this, whether it's on TikTok or Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or wherever you happen to see this, a YouTube short, I don't know. I need to see that graphic every week. I need us to keep that same energy. Let's
start tagging them. You got to add them.
Let's continue to compare Devontae Adams' production week by week to the Packers receivers' production.
Well, now the Raiders are now irrelevant, being 0-3, so they can't get the graphic up now anyway because it doesn't matter.
That's not my fault. No, I want that energy kept. I want it.
The energy's gone though. Even though you want that same energy, Fox doesn't want that same energy because none of the Vegas people are going to watch anymore. So
Fox is stupid. Anyway, let's talk. Let's in the AFC. Let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 2-1 on the season and are at.
Guess who they lost to though on that schedule? Who's their only L?
Relax. Okay.
Why don't you say it on national television? Huh?
I'm not giving that sorry football team anything more than what they need. So here's the thing, because I don't know about you, but I had the Jacksonville Jaguars sitting right around 5 to 7 wins this season. They're 2-1 right now after having blasted. I mean, absolutely blasting the Los Angeles.
I had them winning this past week after Herbert's injury.
That right. You contribute that to Herbert's injury and the offense not looking that good. But if we just look at their next couple games heading into the bye, they have Philly this week at home. They play Houston. They go to the Colts they go to Indianapolis, take the Colts, then play the Giants. They play Denver. They play Vegas. They play Kansas City. If we look at what is that? That's 7 weeks. I think in the next 7 weeks, the Jacksonville Jaguars lose to the Eagles. I think they lose to the Chiefs. Those are the only 2 games I look at, and I can say definitively they lose to. And honestly, I think the Eagles game is a toss-up. But the Giants game is a win. I think the Denver game is a win. I think the Houston game is a win. We could be talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars having won 7 games already by their week. What is it? Week 12? By the time they get to their bye in week 11, which would then beg the question: are the Jacksonville Jaguars are they back? Like they were never
They're
really
not back.
Never really here, of course. So like you can't really because they were never really here. But like, are the Jacksonville Jaguars a team that are the Jacksonville Jaguars this year's Cincinnati Bengals?
So you think they're gonna? What do you mean by that? Like actually making a run in the playoffs? I don't think they'll make a run in the playoffs.
Last year went from being the worst team in the division to winning the division and making a run.
I don't think they're going to make a run, but I think they are going to be this year's Cincinnati Bengals, yes. I think they're going to go from worst to first. And I got to give our guy, JT, a quick shout out. He's been hyping Jacksonville in this division for now the last couple months, more or less just because Don thought the Colts were going to the Super Bowl. So sorry, Don. Terrible pick. Gotta give JT his flowers though on that. They've impressed. Like honestly, they should be 3-0. I mean, I know I kind of heckled because the Commanders won that game, but if Jacksonville could just learn how to catch a pass in week 1, they blow out the Commanders in week 1, right? So they should. You could make the argument they should be 3-0.
I have a couple stocks I need to sell today. I'm selling my Saints stock. It's gone. I don't want it anymore. I'm going to sell it while it's at its lowest. I'm going to sell it. It's gone. I don't want it.
Jameis might not even play now this week, so.
I'm selling my Saints stock. The Saints look terrible against the Panthers. I already had Jaguar stock. If you guys watch back at the offseason series, I said a lot, like every chance I got.
Yeah.
I did. I had the Jaguars. But
where are your receipts, bro? Pull out the receipts.
I will. In the Jaguars episode, I sat up here and I said, you know what? The Jaguars might win the division. I said in the Colts episode, the Jaguars might win the division. I said in the Texans episode, the Jaguars might just win the division.
Because this division's so open. Yeah.
No, because the Jaguars are super, like, they're really good. I have been sold that the Jaguars could win 7 games this season from the beginning. I
had them around 5 or 6.
That's been
50-50 games that they've already won.
And I thought the Jaguars win 7 games this year. Coach Doug Peterson is coach of the year. When the Jacksonville Jaguars win the division come season's in.
When? It's not if, it's when now.
Should walk onto the field with the Coach of the Year trophy in hand and just bestow it upon Doug Peterson at the end of their game in Week 17, because he will have earned it. If at the end of Week 17 the Jacksonville Jaguars win at the end of Week 17 the Jacksonville Jaguars have clinched the AFC South, and that's going to be a home game, which makes it that more special. Just give Doug Peterson the award after they beat the Tennessee Titans in Week 18. And name him Coach of the Year then. Let's move on from the Jaguars, because clearly you're not appreciating my love for the Jaguars. But it's fine.
Honestly, no. We can talk Jaguars. The one thing that I've really liked so far is that their defense has impressed more than I thought they would be. I thought that was going to be their huge liability, especially on that back end. Yeah. We knew they had some real pieces in that front 7 with Josh Allen and Miles Jack, Calais Campbell, but their defense, especially with those young defensive backs, have really raised some eyebrows for me. And no offense, I mean, their receiving core doesn't look as bad as we all thought, and how they overpaid for Zay Jones and Christian Kirk. They've really complemented one another, and the way they're utilizing ETN has just been perfect with James Robinson. They have offensively, Doug Peterson has blended them perfectly for Trevor Lawrence's development, which is why we loved the hire, right? That he was going to be able to develop Trevor Lawrence, and he has done that with huge chances right now with Jacksonville. You got to put him as the front runner. They're now my front runner to win the division, without question.
They're going to win the division.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the only team that you could make the argument is Indy. But now I still don't understand what Indy looks like. Honestly, Indy should be 0-3, and yet they're 1-1-1.
Which is such a disgusting record. 1-1-1. It's nasty.
I know, right?
Terrible.
But no, of course. But, they're going to win the Super Bowl. Don's not hitting the panic meter yet, Don, if you're watching, hit the panic meter. You're on like 12 for the Colts to make the Super Bowl.
And I respect Don for not abandoning his take, but Don, let's be serious. Like, we're not winning the Super Bowl. Let's move on from the Jags. Let's talk about what I think is this is actually the most. If there was one segment on this show I was super looking forward to, it was this one, 100%. And I hope the people that need to watch this end up watching this, because I'm gonna I have a lot of things I want to say about this, and I'm going to say it. Cooper Rush, in Dak's absence, has led the Dallas Cowboys to wins over the Cincinnati Bengals and most recently the New York Giants. They are now heading into a matchup this week against the...
You know who they are. You can say it.
Can't think about it. I actually just drew a blank there. No funny.
It's my team. It's my team. It's my team. That's why you drew a blank, because you couldn't figure out which name it's supposed to be, right? Because they've already had three. They've had 3 in 4 years. So
the Cooper Rush and the Dallas Cowboys are headed back home to take on the Commanders in a home game. And Jerry Jones has said a lot of interesting things about how Cooper Rush has played. So we'll just break all these things down one by one. The first thing is he would welcome a quarterback controversy in Dallas if Cooper Rush continues to play the way that he's been playing. Would there be a QB controversy if Cooper Rush continues to play football at the level that he's been playing for as long as Dak Prescott is out?
No, but there won't, but I think there should. Because I think putting Cooper Rush in this, I think there should. Why? Because I think it has taken the reins out of Kellen Moore's hands. It has finally made him dial it back because they're so reliant on Dak Prescott to bail these guys out. And this is what Kellen Moore needs to realize. There won't. But because if Cooper Rush still keeps winning games, don't get me wrong, the schedule has been a layup for him these couple weeks with the Giants. The Bengals are a good football team, but if they keep winning, you don't have to rush Dak back, right?
That's not the question, Blaine.
No, I'm getting there. There's a process, okay? But why wouldn't you welcome that? If Cooper Rush is winning you football games and you need Dak to not be the sole focal point of this team, you want it to be a team effort. And that's what they have done with Cooper Rush. They've managed the games. You've gotten Zeke and Tony Pollard the ball. You've gotten CD the ball in space. You've had Noah Brown start to emerge as a number 2 wide receiver. You still have Michael Gallup that's going to want to come back. But with Kellen Moore, with Dak Prescott, he wants to be the flashy car instead of being the reason that you win football games with Cooper Rush is that you're playing to win, not playing to look flashy and win. It's all about Dallas. This is the issue with the Dallas Cowboys. And if Cooper Rush keeps winning, you create that controversy of why, because Kellen Moore will go right back to the flashiness with Dak. He will change the entire scheme of the offense right back to what it was when you should be looking for the balance of the team. So maybe that isn't the correct answer of welcoming a competition. Maybe this is just more on the OC. But why not? Jerry loves the flair. Come on now. That's how he sells tickets.
What world is there ever a debate?
There is no.
Deserves to be the starting quarterback.
Wins and losses. That's what matters. Cooper Rush is undefeated as a starting quarterback.
In this division, against this division, has one of the best records a quarterback in the NFL, an active quarterback in the NFL has in their division
because the division has no quarterbacks.
It's not true.
Now Jalen Hurts. He's got Jalen Hurts now.
That's it. Dak Prescott owned this division where Carson Wentz was in his prime. Dak Prescott owned this division. Okay, well, the Commanders haven't had a quarterback in a while. That's not true because Alex Smith was a good quarterback and Dak Prescott owned this division.
Alex Smith played 7 games. And
across those 7,
he played the Cowboys once,
and they lost. Okay, lost. They lost. They lost. This is the fact. They lost. Here's the thing: Dak Prescott can win you a Super Bowl. Cooper Rush cannot. It's really that simple. There's no quarterback controversy.
Oh, no. I never said you win the Super Bowl. I'm just trying to talk about the Dallas getting to the playoffs.
No. You're not getting to the playoffs with Cooper Rush as your quarterback. What are we doing here? What are we talking about?
They are. They're winning football games. Kellen Moore's actually playing smart football as a freaking OC. He's not going to do that anymore with Dak as the quarterback.
Prescott misses the rest of the season, the Dallas Cowboys are not making the playoffs. They're not.
Look at the NFC, dude. There's one wide open spot left still.
If Dak Prescott is not in Dallas, all these games that we've given to Dallas over the years because of who their quarterback is, despite the incompetence of Jason Garrett when he was the head coach, despite the incompetence of current head coach Mike McCarthy, despite the undying predictability of Kellen Moore and the way that he calls offense, despite the up and downs we've seen from this defense, the only reason why we ever looked at Dallas Cowboys and we gave them a chance offensively and a chance to make the playoffs was because of Dak Prescott. If Dak Prescott, for some god-awful reason, were to miss the remainder of the 2022-23 NFL regular season, there is no way the Dallas Cowboys are making the playoffs.
I think they're still teetering.
No, they're not.
They're a teeter playoff team.
The Dallas Cowboys
division's so bad that they're going to get those extra wins.
That's right. I'll run down the rest of the schedule for you right now because they'll smack the Commanders if I was the quarterback. So we don't have to worry about that game this week. You could quarterback the Cowboys and the Cowboys will spank the Commanders. That's no problem.
No, because I will be a homer and I'll throw pick sixes, but they'll still drop it and CD will catch it.
My 10-year-old nephew could quarterback the Dallas Cowboys and the Commanders would lose by 50. Stop it. Anyway, look, let's just run down the schedule from week 5 on. With Cooper Rush, they lose to the Rams. With Dak Prescott,
we're going to lose with the Rams either way because Dak's not going to be fully healthy yet.
No, ignore the health. What I'm saying is if Dak Prescott is healthy going into the game against the Rams, you give the Cowboys. Will you listen to me, man? Will you listen to me?
It doesn't matter. I'm being realistic. You're staying a fantasy thing if he is healthy. He's not going to be healthy, so why even talk about it?
Be realistic. If Dak Prescott steps onto the field, Dak Prescott at 80% is better than Cooper Rush at 100%. First of all, that's just a fact. He's more accurate. He's a better decision maker. He has a stronger arm. He's more mobile. The facts, and more facts. He's just a better quarterback at 80% than Cooper Rush is 100%. So let's say a 75% Dak Prescott shows up in LA week 5. You give the Cowboys a chance. Do you really? Maybe not. Do they have a better chance?
I don't give them a chance either way. They're losing that game.
You're a Commander. Shut up. Anyway, the Cowboys have a better chance of beating the Rams with an 80% Dak Prescott than 100% Cooper Rush. Okay? Dak Prescott the Cowboys have a better chance of beating the Philadelphia Eagles the following week with Dak Prescott than they do with Cooper Rush. It's a fact. Now, with Detroit, I think the Cowboys beat Detroit with Dak Prescott. I can't say definitively that the Dallas Cowboys are going to beat Detroit with Cooper Rush as quarterback. I can't say that definitively. I just can't. I can't say that. I can't say definitively.
I can't say they're going to beat them with Dak Prescott because of how good the Lions have been.
If Dak Prescott's the quarterback heading into the game against Detroit, the Cowboys smash the Lions and they smash the Bears the following week. You can't say this.
They'll smash the Bears with Cooper Rush.
They won't though. You can't say that definitively. It'll look like how
the Bears are so bad, dude. Come on. If Davis Mills can't learn how to throw, they lose to Houston this past week.
Okay, but the difference between a bad team and a bad team, the difference between a bad team and a good team is just so.
All right, let's keep going. Keep running through the games. Let's go.
Okay, let's ignore this week and let's just go down the rest. By the end of this week, there'll be 13 games left in the season. We're talking Rams, Eagles, Detroit, Chicago, bye, Green Bay, Minnesota, Giants, Colts, Texans, Jags, Philly, Tennessee, Washington. In those 13 games, if Dak Prescott's your quarterback, I think the Cowboys beat Detroit. I think they beat Chicago. I think they beat Minnesota. I think they beat the Giants. I think they beat the Colts. I think they beat the Texans. I think they beat the Jags. I think they beat the game in Philly in Week 16 at home. I think they beat Tennessee. And I think they beat Washington, which is
you have them 11. That's like 10 or 11 more games, dude.
It's 9. I think I think they lose to Green Bay. I think they lose to the Rams and I think they lose to the Rams and the Eagles either way. With Cooper Rush as your quarterback, and this is the point.
They win 6 or 7 more games.
Oh, if Cooper Rush is your quarterback, the game against the Lions is a debatable one. The game against the Vikings, I think, is debatable. The game against the Giants is going to be a 1-point spread again, and I know that because it was a 1-point spread this week when Cooper Rush was playing them this week. Why would it not be a 1-point spread again when they play them again? I think the game against the Colts is a loss with Cooper Rush as quarterback. I think the game against the Jags is a toss-up. I think you lose to Philly. I think it's a toss-up against Tennessee. And the Commanders are the Commanders, and I think they smashed the Commanders. Like I said, if my 10-year-old nephew. Let's go back. The fact of the matter is, Dak Prescott, as the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, gets the Cowboys in the playoffs. Dak Prescott.
I can't. I'm not disagreeing with you that Dak Prescott isn't a better quarterback. I'm disagreeing with you because Kellen Moore needs to get his eyes out of his freaking buttocks. I didn't know if you wanted to swear.
I don't care if Kellen Moore has his head 15 miles up his ass. Dak Prescott's better than Cooper Rush. Stop doing
that is the problem. Because Dak is going to be they're going to be too reliant on Dak again. That's the issue with the Dallas Cowboys now is that they have balance with Cooper Rush and they don't have balance with Dak.
Look, okay, well then I'm sorry, but here's like the Bills are too reliant on Josh Allen and they're Super Bowl favorites. The Chiefs have been too reliant on Patrick Mahomes.
That's different because the Bills don't have a running game to begin with.
You want to list down teams that have running games? Okay, the Bengals are too reliant on Joe Burrow. They were in the Super Bowl last year. The Chargers are too reliant on Justin Herbert, and they're a good football team. Are they not? Are they not a good football team? I think they're a pretty good football team. I think if Justin Herbert's not hurt, they don't get smashed by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Why are we? Dak Prescott, in my opinion, is a top 10 quarterback in football, and
him as a teetering top 10 quarterback.
Okay, teetering top 10, and you're going to sit here and tell me that a teetering top 10 quarterback does not put you in a better position to make the playoffs than a quarterback?
I never said he didn't. I think they become too reliant on him, which makes them more vulnerable than what they are now.
Why would you not rely on your teetering top 10 quarterback to win you football games? Why wouldn't you do that? That's what they're paying.
Because it doesn't work when it matters for them.
When doesn't it? When doesn't it?
Look, every time they make the playoffs and win a game that they really need to win.
I'm talking about them in the playoffs. We know how they're going to be in the playoffs. I'm talking about the beginning.
I'm thinking with Cooper Rush, they're not making the Super Bowl either, but they're going to stink it up either way in the playoffs.
Season,
I will yield here because I despise the Cowboys anyway. So
that's fine, and I think your takes have been tainted with a whole bunch of bias the past 10 minutes. But the Dallas,
are you kidding me? I get rip on the Commanders more than anyone.
Yeah, well, you're a fan, and the Commanders suck.
That's nothing new. We've sucked for 15 out of the last 17 years. We've had 2 years where we make the playoffs.
But I mean, you had good years. We just talked about you went 7-9 2 years ago. That wasn't a good year.
I'm not talking about that year. I'm talking about the RG3 year and then the other year that we went 10.
The year the Washington football team started 3-6 and had to pray and thank on their lucky stars to win 7 straight games, only for your own football field that is poorly maintenance by the owner, costing your potentially franchise quarterback his leg and ultimately his career. Yeah, unfortunate for the Washington Commanders. Here's the deal. Dak Prescott, as the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, makes them a lock as a playoff team. It's a lock. It's a fact. Dak Prescott, not as your quarterback, makes it a toss-up. And I don't care. Look, do I think that because Cooper Rush has been playing good and because the Cowboys have been winning that there should be no rush to, no pun intended, to bring Dak back?
They should.
I agree with
that. If they win this week, you let it rock.
The Commanders.
No, that's what I mean. If you'll win this week, right? And then you have the Rams next week, there's no point in rushing them back for that Rams game.
Look,
you're playing with house money at this point because you've gone 2-0 with Rush at quarterback.
No, they're playing with Jerry's money. That's what you don't understand. Playing with Jerry's money, and Jerry doesn't like wasting his money. Jerry Jones should not be rushing Dak Prescott back until Dak Prescott is 100%. Because
that's what the Cowboys do.
But despite the fact that the schedule has been relatively easy, given they played Giants and then Washington, right? You do have 2 tough games against LA and Philly that you could lose with Cooper Rush. But I think it's a toss-up with Detroit. I think you lose that game, but it's a toss-up. I think heading into the bye, if the Cowboys are 3-3, it wouldn't be 3-3. It would be they'd be what? They'd be 4-4 heading into the bye. That's not a bad spot.
That's ideal
to be in. It's not a bad spot to be in.
Everyone thought they might not even get a game by the time he would come back.
Which is my point.
They've already gotten 3.
What you do not do is send in a less than 100% Dak Prescott into Green Bay because they'll get smashed either way. But you don't send a less than 100% Dak Prescott into Green Bay because you're not going to win that game. But you also don't want to send Cooper Rush into that game if Dak Prescott's 100%. Because then they'll definitely get crushed. Like, the difference between Dak Prescott and Cooper Rush is such that toss-up games with Cooper Rush are virtual guaranteed wins with Dak Prescott. Toss-up games with Dak Prescott are virtually guaranteed losses with Cooper Rush, and that is the fact of the matter. And that is why to sit here and say that the Cooper Rush-led Dallas Cowboys team has a better chance of winning games and making to the playoffs as opposed to a Dak Prescott-led Dallas Cowboys team.
I don't think it's this higher. It'll probably be a little bit closer to the same.
It's not, though. It's not. Your odds of making the playoffs when you don't have the best quarterback in the division drop drastically. Your odds of making the playoffs when your backup is starting. How many backup quarterbacks have started a majority of the games in the regular season and have led their team to the playoffs? How many times has that happened in an NFL season? How many?
A handful.
I bet never. I know the Packers didn't do it when Deshaun Kaiser and Matt Flynn and all these other no-names were starting for us when Aaron Rodgers was breaking his collarbones and whatnot. Look, there is one time in history where a backup quarterback has led his team to success when the starting quarterback was out.
Jimmy G in New England.
That was Tom Brady when Drew Bledsoe broke his leg or whatever happened to him, and Tom Brady turned out to be the GOAT. That's it. That's it. We don't see backup quarterbacks lead good teams to the playoffs. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Jimmy G got hurt for San Francisco. The 49ers sucked. Dak Prescott broke his leg a couple seasons ago. The Cowboys were 3-13. They were 3-13. The Commanders started a backup quarterback an entire season, and they won 7 games. They only made the playoffs because someone from the division had to make the playoffs. That's it. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Jared Goff is the quarterback for the Lions. The Lions aren't making the playoffs. They're not. They are just not.
Well, you can make, at least for Jared Goff's sake, is that they're not losing games because of Jared Goff.
Yeah, but he's also not a starting quarterback in the NFL.
I think he's still. You can make the argument that he's one of the top 32 quarterbacks in football right now.
Yeah, he's a starting quarterback out of necessity. Jared Goff's not a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's a starting quarterback out of necessity because all the other all of the other franchise and starting quarterbacks are taken. Someone needs to start for our team. Let's throw Jared Goff out there. Similar. Look, Geno Smith and the Seahawks aren't making it to the playoffs. They're not.
I mean, that was inevitable. We all knew that.
Sucks because the Seahawks suck. Cooper Rush, as good as he has been playing so far this season, is not capable of leading the Dallas Cowboys to the playoffs. And it's not because he's bad. It's because the Cowboys without Dak Prescott go from having a lot of interesting and close games to having a lot of losses. That's just how it works. Cooper Rush isn't beating the Rams. Cooper Rush isn't beating the Eagles twice. Cooper Rush definitely isn't beating the Green Bay Packers. But neither is Dak Prescott. Like, it's just not happening. Cooper Rush probably isn't going to beat Minnesota again, but maybe they could.
What day is the Green Bay game? Because I got to make sure I'm texting you after when this game when you're talking all this talk and Cooper Rush goes into Green Bay and beats them.
If you want to text me, you can text me in Week 7 when the Packers and Aaron Rodgers are putting their foot in your Commander's ass. If you want to text me about a football game, that's when you can text me.
You're going to be texting me either way.
I'm not. I have no reason to. I have no reason to text the Commanders fan about the Commanders getting spanked by the Packers because that's just what happened.
Washington's favored this 53% to win this weekend over Cooper Rush. I'm just enjoying just messing with you now.
Cooper Rush is going for 350-3 this week in DC against the Washington Commanders.
It's in Dallas, actually. It's in Jerry World.
Even he's going for 450-5. Excuse me, then. And if that happens, the Commanders need to sell the team tomorrow. And
Snyder should be gone, but whatever.
Put it to the XFL, whatever.
Let's talk Thursday Night Football.
No, let's stick here and talk about how bad your Commanders are. You don't run this show. I run this show. You rush
Let's talk Thursday Night Football.
You rush the segments on your show. When you're here,
the Commanders aren't on the segments here.
When you are here on GOAT, okay, it's my show. I make up the rules. When you are here on GOAT Talk with Marcus, you suffer through the Commander slander because you should suffer because they're terrible. They're terrible.
Should I put my feet? Should I put my feet up?
How are you a Commanders fan anyway, and you're from Idaho? How's that?
Idaho. I'm from California first.
Even further away from DC. Let's hear this.
My dad lived in DC when they were winning the Super Bowl with Theismann, the Hogs.
100 years ago? 100 years ago?
100 years ago. And I'm the only son he was able to conform over because I was the first son. Everyone else obviously has a.
Commanders appear in a Super Bowl in your lifetime?
Huh?
You're not that much older than me. You haven't seen the Commanders appear in a Super Bowl in your lifetime, have you?
I haven't even seen them win a playoff game, my friend.
That's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. Super duper unfortunate.
Let's see. When was the last time?
What are you, 26, 27? What are you?
26.
No.
When was the last time Washington Commanders won a playoff game?
You're 26. You were born in
96.
96.
Oh, no. I lied. They won a playoff game in 05 with Mark. I totally forgot.
With who?
In 2005.
Who's the quarterback?
I'm assuming it's Mark Brunell. That's saying enough right there.
Mark Brunell. That's insane.
That's you.
Yeah. Hey, look. In 2005, my team drafted Aaron Rodgers, and 3 years later, he became one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen. So.
I think we won 17-10 in the wild card.
Okay.
Yep, 17-10. We were 11-6 that year. We had Clinton Portis was our running back. Don Taylor had a touchdown, a defensive touchdown. Our quarterback was Chris. No, it wasn't. Shit. Where's the box score? I'm still scrolling here. Yeah, Mark Brunell. Oh my God, you want to hear his stat line? Oh my God. So we won this football game 17-10. Mark Brunell was our starting quarterback. He was 7 of 15 for 41 yards and an INT, and we still won the fucking game.
Because the Commanders suck. Anyway, let's talk about 2 teams that don't suck. The Bengals are hosting the Dolphins this week, Thursday Night Football, or is it the Dolphins are hosting the Bengals?
Dolphins are going to Cincy.
So, the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow is on 0 dark 30 mode. He's deleted Instagram and Twitter off of his phone. He's looking to right the ship in Cincinnati. And this is the debut of the Bengals' white out uniforms. Who do you
Those look tough, by the way.
Super, super duper tough. Who do you have winning Thursday Night Football tomorrow night to kick off week 4?
Cincinnati, because Cincinnati's got to win this game or they might be done.
Hey, relax. You know what? I am so sick of you and Guru and Peyton and Justin and JT and I don't know if they're 18 but I'm just going to throw them in there. And all of you have no faith whatsoever in the Cincinnati Bengals.
Well, let's look at their schedule, my friend. Let's run through it.
No. Last season,
You've got Miami tomorrow. If you don't win, you're 1-3. Then you're at Baltimore. That's a loss, 1-4. All right, you beat the Saints. You beat the Falcons. So that gets you back up to 3-4 now? Yeah, 3-4. Then you have at the Browns. That's no longer a layup.
It is. 100%.
No, it's not. With Jacoby, the Browns are 2-1 with Brissett. And it's Halloween, so you never know what's going to happen. Spooky things happen. So let's just say you win that one. You're 500. You got Carolina. You're 5-4. You're at Pittsburgh. That's a game that you guys always figure out a way to lose. So I'm giving them an L there. 5-5. Then you beat Tennessee. You're 6-5. Lose to Kansas City. 6-6. I'll give you the other Browns game. 7-6.
Kansas City twice the last 2 times they played them.
Okay. No, they're not going to beat them this time. Kansas City's got something to prove.
God.
Then you're 7-6. You play. Then you close out with Bucks, Patriots, Bills, Ravens. So let's just say you even split there. That only puts you at 9 wins. And that's if they win. They're on thin ice. They might be 1-4. They're going to be 1-4 if they lose this week. But I have the Bengals winning.
Can we stop it? Stop it. Last year, we watched the Kansas City Chiefs get the breaks, or 2 years ago, we watched the Kansas City Chiefs get the breaks beat off of them in the Super Bowl. And Patrick Mahomes had more yards scrambling for his life in the backfield than he did passing yards. And the Chiefs said, we need to improve our offensive line. And there was growing pains. And you and I and Mean Joe down the street and Dominique Foxworth and Ryan Clark and Greeny and Stephen A. and all these other talking heads that get paid to do what we're doing right now got on TV. We turned on our microphones. We got on our computers. We got on the internet. And we said, oh, man, the Chiefs are – what's going on with the Chiefs? They were 2-4 or 2-5 or whatever. And then what the Chiefs do? The Chiefs went on and went to the AFC Championship game. We was like, oh, it's the Chiefs. The Cincinnati Bengals went to the Super Bowl with a suspect offensive line.
And their offensive line looks more suspect this year.
Was half a second from winning the Super Bowl. They fixed their offensive line, and they're having growing pains. Why is it that last year when we saw this movie at this time last season, we looked at
Cincinnati's history doesn't prove that they're going to be successful.
They were successful last season. They were successful.
They dip. They have a good year. They have a bad year. They have an average year. Then they have a bad year. They haven't had consecutive good years.
Is Joe Burrow not a top 10 quarterback in the NFL? Yes or no?
No question he is.
Do they not have a top 10 wide receiver core in the NFL? If not top 3? Okay. Is Joe Mixon not a top 10 running back in the NFL?
Yes, because Joe Mixon used to dust me all the time in high school.
Pittsburgh Steelers don't really have a quarterback right now. Apparently, that's what everyone's telling me. So the Pittsburgh
Pickett will be playing by then, so it's fine.
Okay. The Cleveland Browns don't have Deshaun Watson right now, and say what you want. It's not a lock that the Browns are going to beat the Bengals, right? So really, this is a 2-horse race in Baltimore. So let's say we see a scenario where the Cincinnati Bengals start their season off 2-5 or 2-4 or whatever the Chiefs did last season. Why would I not look at a team that went to the Super Bowl last season, won their division last season, represented the AFC last season, won the conference? Why would I not look at them and I say, hey, the last team to do this, that won the division, that won the went to the Super Bowl, that represented the AFC in the Super Bowl, that had tough start because of the offensive line, why can I not look at the Bengals and say maybe they can figure this out? I think the Bengals deserve that because they've earned that, because this is not the Bungles. This is the Bengals. This is Joe Burrow. This is Jamar Chase. This is T. Higgins. This is Tyler Ford. This is Joe Mixon. And you can chuckle all you want with your with whatever condescending remarks you have in your head, but the Cincinnati Bengals deserve the benefit of the doubt. I don't hear anybody panicking about the Los Angeles Rams and the slow start that they've had to the season. Granted, they're not 1-2.
2-1.
That's not the point, though. It took a Jalen Ramsey interception on the goal line for them not to lose to the Falcons 2 weeks ago. They got absolutely blacked in week 1.
Their defense has some flags. I'm not going to right you wrong there.
So we're going to sit
Think about the Rams, my friend. The Rams are in the NFC. The Bengals are in the AFC. The Bengals are in a tougher
AFC.
Conference. There's more teams.
That's not the point. We're not talking about the teams. We're talking about the Bengals right now, in and of themselves, deserve the benefit of the doubt, deserve some time to figure things out. We gave it to the Chiefs last season. No one's been up in arms. I haven't had anyone say anything about the fact that the Atlanta Falcons almost went into Los Angeles last week and
Falcons should be 3-0. I don't know what you're talking about. Atlanta should be 3-0. Okay, they've choked 2 out of their 3 weeks.
Okay, and one of those games was against the Rams. Nobody's concerned about how the Rams are going to look at this upcoming season. No one's concerned about the Rams' outlook, but everyone's
talked about it on my show how we were concerned with the Rams.
Yeah, that's the first time ever that anyone's mentioned anything. It's because I brought it up. You didn't. I did. I brought it up. Run the tape. I brought it up. No one's concerned about the Rams, but everyone is concerned about the Bengals, all because the Bengals have had a slow start to the season. Because, look, the Cincinnati Bengals are fine. Joe Burrow is fine. Jamar Chase is fine. Zach Taylor is fine. Joe Mixon is fine. Tyler Boyd is fine. T. Higgins is fine. The Cincinnati Bengals.
Zach Taylor only has his job because of Joe Burrow.
That's fine. Bill Belichick has looked terrible without Tom Brady. Are we going to say that?
You're right.
Job because of Tom Brady? Like, there's a lot of coaches who only had jobs because they had, like, Mike McCarthy only had a job because he had Aaron Rodgers. Pete Carroll only had a job the past couple years.
That's the reason Matt LaFleur has a job, because Aaron Rodgers.
LaFleur is actually a good head coach. Watch it. Like, Kyle Shanahan only has a job because his last name is Shanahan. We can go on and on and on and on and on about coaches.
No, we can. Talk about your Bengals. And
only has a job because the Commanders were stupid enough to think that he could bring some Carolina Magic to Washington when Washington sucks. Mike McCarthy only has a job because Sean Payton's retired right now. Like, what? Who else only has a job that shouldn't really? Kevin O'Connell only has a job because he was a part of the Rams coaching staff last season. Brandon Staley only has a job because he was the defensive coordinator for a defense 2 years ago that boasts Aaron Donald, one of the greatest defensive players the world has ever seen, and Jalen Ramsey, arguably one of the best cover corners the game is looking at right now today. Let's keep going. Mike Vrabel only has a job because he comes from the Bill Belichick coaching tree. Arthur Smith only has a job because he comes from the Shanahan coaching tree. We already discussed what happened with Shanahan. And by the way, shame on the Commanders for letting Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay, and Kyle Shanahan go, because that was one of the greatest.
Don't forget Kevin O'Connell. He was on that team.
You're not helping yourself. Nathaniel Hackett only had a coaching job right now because somewhere in Denver, somebody thought that he could bring some of the magic that we saw in Green Bay the past 2 years to Denver, and it's done nothing. Like, coaches get. Cliff Kingsbury only has a job because the Cardinals thought that the only way they could get Kyler Murray was if they had Cliff Kingsbury. Forgetting the fact that they had the number one pick in the draft that year, and any team that had the number one pick in the draft that year, we're going to get Kyler Murray, because when you're bad and you pick number one, you get the best player in the draft. That's how it works. That's just how it works. Jason Garrett only had a job for however many years he had a job in Dallas because he was Jerry's boy. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to be just fine, and I cannot wait for the end of the season when the Cincinnati Bengals are back at the top of the AFC North, are back in the AFC playoffs, are back vying for a Super Bowl potentially, and I get to come back on this show, and I'll have you and everyone else that for the course of the season is going to tell me that, look, the Cincinnati Bengals are not done. Teams start slow.
So you have them losing then tomorrow?
No, I have the Bengals winning tomorrow. It's in Cincinnati.
So it doesn't matter. So if they win it, we're all good, because there's no longer a slow start.
What you're saying is the off chance that the Cincinnati Bengals lose to the Dolphins tomorrow, that their season is done. That's just not true.
I never said it's done. I said it's close to done.
No, you said they will be done if they lose tomorrow. That's what you said. And that is what you said. And when I clip it, the world will see that you said the Cincinnati Bengals will be done if they lose.
Fine. All right, I'll ride that train. The Bengals will be done if they lose tomorrow. The Bengals will be done. Quote it, throw it on there.
If
they win, there's nothing to talk about it. So Cincinnati, I picked you to win tomorrow. Win, and then we don't even have to have this dumb argument that we're talking about. The Bengals will be done if you lose.
Cincinnati Bengals will be fine. Teams
Joe
have
Mixon, do what you do to me like in high school track. Dust them. All right.
It happens. I am sick of the Chiefs started off slow last season. No one wanted to bat an eye. Nobody.
I was batting the eye with the Kansas City Chiefs last year.
And that's fine. But a majority of the people weren't. Now, all of a sudden, the Cincinnati Bengals are off to a slow start, and everybody's blinking their eyes left and right like they've got an eyelash or something stuck in it, and they're trying to get it out. And it just doesn't make any sense to me, because the Bengals deserve the benefit of the doubt. This is the team that beat the Kansas City Chiefs twice last season. This is the team that won their division last season. This is the team that played damn good football last season. So let's relax on the set. The Cincinnati Bengals are not done. They could get dusted by 50 tomorrow. Their season's not over. It's not over. It's not over. The only team season who's over right now is the Houston Texans season, the Las Vegas Raiders season. Those are only two seasons who are done. And if they lose this week, then the Commanders season will be done too. But that's it. The Bengals are fine. They are fine. They're fine. They're fine. They're fine. They're fine. They're fine. How dare you disrespect Joseph Lee Burrow? I can't believe you. On this show, I cannot believe you. I can't believe you. I just can't.
You have my eye twitching. I can't with you right now. I really can't.
Because I'm speaking facts? Because I'm speaking.
I'm about to have a stroke on your show.
Facts? Because I'm telling you the truth? Because you want to acknowledge the truth of the matter that the Cincinnati Bengals are fine?
It doesn't matter. We both have the Bengals winning tomorrow, so there's nothing to worry about.
I'm not worried. I haven't been worried. This happens. Teams get off to slow starts. Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers got off to a slow start a couple seasons ago. What did they do? They ran the table. They were perfectly fine.
The red flags are there because not many teams do the Aaron Rodgers or the Kansas City Chiefs and figure it out and start getting hot in the middle of
You
the
don't
year.
think the Bengals can figure it out? Why can't they? Why can't they figure it out?
I don't think that I never said they couldn't. I think that they will be. I don't think they can, though. I never said they couldn't, but I don't think they will.
Why don't you think they will is the question that I've been asking. What is it about the Cincinnati Bengals?
The offensive line looks worse. That's probably growing pains. You're right. They look worse, and then on the back end, they look worse. Eli Apple's going to get cooked tomorrow. But
you're not talking about Eli Apple. Eli Apple sucks. He's been on 6 teams in 4 years, has 3 picks to show for. He's terrible. He's the worst secondary player in football. We know that.
The Bengals are going to have to average close to 30 points a game for them to right
No, not. Where are you getting this from? Where are you getting this from?
Yes.
Oh, my God. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to figure it out, and they're going to be fine. Okay. To sit here and say they're going to have to average 30 points a game just to stay afloat
that's pretty much 95% of the NFL now.
What's your point? What does that have to do with anything?
Everyone's got to be close to averaging 30 nowadays.
The Bengals, first of all, the Bengals can average 30.
I know they can.
I
never said they couldn't. They've got the talent offensively to do that.
No, but the notion that they have to average 30 in order to stay afloat, I think, is absurd.
Okay.
And I don't think it's based in any fact. I think it's based in you're just not believing in Joe Burrow.
I'm not believing in Joe Burrow. I'm not believing in the defense. I believe in Joe Burrow to get there.
Okay. Is it the defense or is it the O-line? Because at first it's the O-line. It was the coaching. Then it was the defense. What is it? What is it about the Cincinnati Bengals that is so concerning? Because, again, like I said, I looked at the Los Angeles Rams 2 weeks ago, and it took a goal line interception from Jalen Ramsey from to beat the Atlanta Falcons, a team that is abysmal, been one of the worst teams in football the past 4 seasons. We don't bat an eye to the Los Angeles. Let's. If the Los Angeles Rams this week go into their game in San Francisco and get dusted by the 49ers. Wait.
Offensive line is out of sync.
If the Rams go to San Francisco this week and get dusted, no one bats an eye. If the Bengals tomorrow night lose to the Dolphins, their season's over? Their season's over. The 2-2 Super Bowl champions will be fine, but the 1-3 runner-ups will be done, is what you're telling me. They're a game apart. The Bengals are 1-2.
They have a tougher schedule.
No, they don't. They absolutely do not. It's not based in anything.
I'm done with you at this point.
How? For what? Why?
All right, let's look at the Rams schedule then.
Right.
Because the Rams is the team that you want to use as your comparison. Let's go through the Rams.
Both teams have to play the Bucs at some point. Both teams have to play the Chiefs at some point in the season, right? Both teams have to play. Who else do both of these teams have to play? Both of these teams, well, you don't have to play Green Bay, which kind of sucks. All
right, Rams play the Niners on Monday night. I have them winning that game because I don't trust Jimmy G. They play the Dallas the next week. They're going to win that game. They play the Panthers. So they're going to win that game.
How many times have the Rams beat the 49ers?
They're going to split. They play them twice.
How many times have the Rams beat the 49ers in the Sean McVay era in the regular season? Not many. It just doesn't happen.
They'll lose to the Buccaneers. They'll beat the Cardinals. Cardinals stink. They'll beat the Saints. Saints stink. They'll beat the Seahawks. Seahawks stink. Beat the Raiders. Raiders stink. They'll beat the Broncos. They'll beat the Seahawks again. Seahawks stink. You don't know what the Broncos are going to look like. But we're not impressed with the Broncos. And then we aren't impressed with the Chargers right now. There's a lot of games that they're going to be more winnable than what the Bengals have.
But what I'm saying is the Super Bowl.
That's where I'm looking at it. I'm not saying
the Super Bowl champions.
I think they're going to be done because of the schedule they got left.
The Super Bowl champions are 2-1.
It doesn't get easier.
The Super Bowl runners-up are 1-2.
They lost to the backup quarterback. You're the one that said the Dak Prescott's is the answer for the Dallas Cowboys, and they lost to Cooper Rush.
Okay, what's your point? I'm not seeing the point here. What I'm saying is, how does a 1-game difference between the champs and the runner-up mean that one season is okay and the other season is done? because both the Rams have looked bad through 3 weeks.
Correct. They have.
Okay, so
They won their bad games. The Bengals aren't winning their bad games.
the Bengals have had 2 bad games this season. They've had 2 bad games this season. 2. They've had 2 bad games this season. They had a bad game week 1. They had a bad game week 2. They bounced back. They beat the Jets. The Rams. The Rams have been sloppy all season. They've been sloppy all season, and I'm not. It doesn't. One game. It'd be different if we're saying the Rams are 3-0 and the Bengals are 1-2. Yeah, the Rams are fine. The Rams are 2-1. They got blasted. They almost lost, and they beat a bad Cardinals team. That does not solve the fact that the defense hasn't looked good. Doesn't solve the fact that despite getting that 1 interception against Marcus Mariota and the Falcons, Jalen Ramsey has looked like cooked food so far through 3 weeks of the NFL season. It doesn't negate the fact that the run game is gone. Doesn't negate the fact that Matt Stafford doesn't want to throw the football to Allen Robinson. Doesn't negate the fact that Van Jefferson's on IR now because it doesn't look like he's coming back anytime soon, if at all, this season. The Rams are in shambles as well. No one's batting an eye. But the Cincinnati Bengals are 1-2, and all hell breaks loose. And I need an actual answer as to why a 1-game difference means the Rams are okay right now. Forget the schedule. Right now, people have more faith in the Rams than they do in the Bengals, and it doesn't make sense when just.
That's where I disagree. That's where I agree with you. I am not saying that. I am going based off of the schedule. They have both the same concerns right now, especially in their back end of their secondary, both teams. If you're going that route, I'm agreeing with you. I'm taking the schedule logistical route.
Even if you look at the schedule,
my argument,
get off to a slow start. It happens. It happens. Teams get off to slow starts. We can't.
They've lost to 2 out of the 3 games. They should be 3-0.
We can't.
They lost to 2 bad football teams.
Every season, we can't sit around and say, "Oh, any given Sunday," and then any given Sunday happens, and now it's panic time for a team that was on the bad end.
That's how football works. Any given Sunday with the Washington Commanders, right?
No, the Commanders stink. There is no any given.
Oh, what do you mean? What do you mean? You just said any given Sunday right there.
No, the Commanders suck. They're not good. They should be 0-3. They're terrible. They're a terrible football team. They're an abysmal football team. They're going to get blasted by Cooper Rush. He's going for 500 yards and 6 touchdowns on Sunday. Absolutely, he is. The Commanders suck. Carson Wentz stinks. Ron Rivera stinks. Jack Del Rio, fire him. They're terrible. All 3 of them are terrible. They should be gone tomorrow. They should be fired tomorrow. Dan Snyder should be fired tomorrow. Commanders suck. It's not the same thing. The Commanders don't deserve the any given Sunday benefit of the doubt because they're not a good football team. They're not. Jeez, you got my blood pressure up and all this other stuff. Got my voice all scratchy and stuff.
I'm glad I was able to help you out in that regard.
You want to sit here and disrespect the Cincinnati Bengals? How dare you disrespect Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals? What is wrong with you? What's wrong?
I love Joe Mixon though.
I bet you do. You know what? I so desperately hope in. Dang, you guys don't even play the Bengals this year. Hope Joe Burrow just comes out and drops 705. Just tortures you. Whatever. Got my blood pressure all up at 9:25 at night. Haven't even eaten dinner yet. You want to sit here and talk about how the Bengals season could be done if they lose tomorrow?
I'm not the only one.
And you're all stupid. All of you. All of you are morons. Anybody out there that thinks the Cincinnati Bengals are done, you're morons.
Hey, Cincinnati. Please make my prediction right and win tomorrow so we don't have to have this argument with Marcus the rest of the year. Thank you.
It's not my
appreciate it.
Look, Germ has a monopoly on the truth. That's fine. Sometimes as a small mom and pop shop in this world that sits on the corner store that sells the good deli meats and stuff, sometimes people come in and they buy a bit of truth from me, and all I'm doing is spewing the good truth about how the Cincinnati Bengals are perfectly fine. I am done with you for the night. I am done. I can't even believe I allowed a Commanders fan to sit here and get my blood pressure about the Cincinnati Bengals. Actually, that's shame on me. I need to control my emotions a little bit better. But tell all the people at home where they can find you and all your content.
Always. And as always, Marcus, thank you so much for having me on the show. I know you keep trying to convince yourself less and less to bring me on the show, which is probably a valid argument that you're putting into your head. But you can catch the Final Whistle Sports Podcast at the final.whistle on Instagram and TikTok, Final Whistle Sports Pod on Facebook. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you name it, we've got it. Please like, subscribe to Go Talk with Marcus. Leave a 5-star review. The man does great work, and he is the mastermind behind Go Talk. And as well, he kind of makes sure that my show stays in check, so I do appreciate him in that regard. Because otherwise, it would be probably more of just a Commanders like hype up session when it should more of a vent session when Marcus comes on, because I get he's like my psychologist that I just need to release my issues with.
No, Commanders suck. So if you're a Commanders fan, you want a dose of reality, call me. I'll come on your show and I'll tell you how bad your team is, because I enjoy doing it. It's one of my favorite pastimes.
That's what we did in our last episode. Yeah, you came on my show.
Absolutely, because the Commanders suck. That's just kind of how it works. Anyway, get me out of here. For all of you beautiful people at home, you guys know where to find me: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at GTB Marcus. You can follow on Facebook, search up my name, or search Go Talk with Marcus on Facebook. You'll be able to find me as well. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, obviously, if you're watching or listening or whatever, you guys can follow me there. Subscribe. We have 132 followers. It's been a pleasure. Basketball is on the horizon. There will be a couple basketball episodes coming out the next couple of days. I'm going to give my reaction to ESPN's NBA Top 100 list and how terrible it was.
What an awful list.
Terrible list. Next week, Jalen Hunter of the Unpopular Podcast will be on the show live to recap week 4. And in 2 weeks on October 12th, NFL Mike, Mike on the Mike Sports, to some of you guys that are OG followers, will be on the show to recap week 5. So 2 really cool weeks. And also, due to Hurricane Ian, is that what it's called? Is that the name of it? Due to Hurricane Ian, Peyton will not be on the show tomorrow for the rundown with Peyton because he lives in Florida and he had to evacuate. Which means that the rundown with Peyton and Marcus will not be going live tomorrow night. We'll still post our pick'ems, and we'll still do that and keep that challenge ahead. So just a quick recap of that I'll do for you guys right now that are watching before we go. And this is all impromptu, so give me 1 second while I pull that stuff up, because I didn't think I was going to do that until just now. I just happened to read Peyton's message. Peyton, my guy, if you happen to be watching or listening to this, I absolutely hope that you are doing okay and that you're able to evacuate safely, because you're my guy, and I don't want anybody. And also, if there's anyone that's living in Florida and has to evacuate or has already evacuated, I do hope that you
prayers up
in this time. But this is the rundown from last week. So as you can see, heading into the week, Peyton and I were both 17-17-1, or 17-14-1. Excuse me. As it stands now, we're both 24-23-1. We had 4 disagreements, as you can see there. Texans, Bears, I got the win there. Lions, Vikings, Peyton got the win there. Not Jaguar, Chargers, excuse me. Falcons, Seattle, Peyton got the win there. And then Cowboys, Giants, I got the win there. So we split our series last week as far as the head-to-head, which brings our totals to 3-3. I, however, have the edge as far as primetime games by 2. I have predicted 7 correct primetime winners to Peyton's 5, which means that I'm better at predicting teams that know how to show up when the lights are at its brightest, which is something that I and Go Talk with Marcus does very, very well. So there's that. We will release our picks for week 4 on socials that you guys can see those things. As it stands right now, the rundown with Peyton and Marcus is not happening. That might change. Maybe I'll grab a guest. Maybe I won't. But as it stands right now, the rundown.
I'm right here, bro.
Be Blaine Spencer. I can promise you that. 2 nights in a row with Blaine Spencer just isn't happening. Wow. But the rundown with Peyton and Marcus will not be taking place tomorrow night. Hopefully we'll be back next week. If not, we'll find some kind of proxy to make sure that we can still do the things we need to do. But as I said, you guys will still see the pick 'em and all that stuff over the course of the week as we gear up. And also, Peyton and I are playing each other in the Bragging Rights 2K22 Fantasy Football League that features myself, Blaine. Yeah, because you're a bad fantasy football player. And Peyton.
I'm 2-1.
I'm 3-0, so I get to talk trash. So Peyton and I are playing each other. Peyton is also 3-0. So this is a big week for us also as far as fantasy is concerned because someone's got to lose that game. I'm feeling really good, 3-0 in the bragging rights league. Justin, I believe, of hashtag This Justin Sports Show is also 3-0. Jerm, if you guys follow stuff about sports on Instagram or Facebook, he usually posts the weekly rundown of how everything went on Tuesday afternoon about how everything went. So, follow him for there to check that out. But all that matters here, if you're watching or listening to this show, that your boy is 3-0. Looking to go to 4-0 on the season next week. And it's going to be great. So there's a lot of great stuff happening for Go Talk Markets. You're going to see a lot of basketball content as we get ready for the NBA season, which starts October 19th. I think that's all the housekeeping things I need to announce on the show at the end of the show. We've gone 30 minutes over because Blaine wanted to get my blood pressure up about the Bengals because he's evil. And I'll sue Blaine for emotional distress one of these days, but tonight I just don't have the energy. So for Blaine Spencer, host of the Final Whistle Sports Pod, this is Marcus at Go Talk Markets signing off. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe. And as always, you guys enjoy the rest of your lives.